everyone, Renita Young here from Your Money Story on Quicktake, and today we're talking about how to set your holiday budget. It's not too soon to think about that. In fact, it's the perfect time. So why don't I bring on our guest? It's Jesse Mecham of You Need a Budget. Hang on for a moment. Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
How are you
I'm glad I could
today?
figure that out. That was a first for me. I'm
Oh
doing
no,
well. That
no
was risky,
problem.
but I'm glad
I
it's
kept the
working.
people company while while we were waiting for you. So no, not a problem at all. How are you?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent, no problem. So we'll just hop right into it because I'm interested in knowing about your foundation. Now, you and your wife, Julie, started conceptualizing what became You Need a Budget back in 2003. And so you started developing a budgeting system. But for you, I want to know, what was your relationship with money like growing up in the Mecham household?
Yeah, it was one where I know, observing my parents, I noticed that money was always a little tense. We had enough. I was blessed in that I could open the fridge. I knew food would be in there. I never had ever had a feeling of want in that way as a kid. But I did notice just it was just tense, that we could kind of pick up on the vibe. But probably the biggest lesson I learned was I was 16 years old. I was starting to kind of go out and hang out with friends and ask girls out and pay for dates and things like that. And the money wasn't as I mean, I would make money and then I would spend it. And so one time I decided I'm just going to write down what I spend. And
Hmm.
I printed out a piece of paper with just lines on it and would write down with pencil, here I spent this here. And I looked back at it after 30 days and I realized, oh my gosh, I spent so much money eating out, just
Yeah,
as a teenage kid, of course, you just, you do that all the time.
and
And
adults.
absolutely, yeah, I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus there or anything, but that's absolutely true. And I noticed as I kept tracking what I was spending that my spending started dropping even
Hmm.
though I didn't feel like I was doing less. I didn't feel deprived. And for a 16-year-old kid, it was interesting to just note, oh, my awareness has affected my behavior, but my
Hmm.
feelings are the same. I'm having a good time.
Oh,
I'm not feeling sad, not feeling like I'm restricted. It was an early lesson for me.
that's pretty good because I'm sure that that kind of informed your decision making in college and the rest of high school and
Yeah,
even obviously now. That's really, really conscientious of a 16-year-old kid. So props to your parents for raising you and doing the
absolutely.
foundational
Yeah.
work to do that. And so take me to the moment where you and Julie made this shift back in 2003 to
Yeah.
become more conscientious together about your finances.
We were both making, university student income, like $10 an hour at the time, and we were going to get married. And I remember she was working down at the university library, and I was sitting on one of the computers. We didn't own a computer; we had to use the school's computer, and I was just kind of crunching the numbers. And when you combine the finances of two people that don't make a lot of money, there's no synergy there. It's just you're
Hmm.
just still not making enough money, and I just recognized we're going to have to really be conscientious and careful here. And so after we were married, I had built this spreadsheet, and luckily, honeymoon period and all of that, I go to Julie, I say, hey, what if we use this spreadsheet that I built to watch what we're doing? And in that first year, I could basically do no wrong because we were just married. So she was like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it worked out well. We did have to be very careful, and we would just plug in every time we spent money. But the biggest part that really changed for me, and I think what helped us not have that tension that I saw growing up, and that I think most people are very familiar with, is
Hmm.
we would plan beforehand what we wanted the money to do. And in that way, suddenly we weren't just being punished by a budget, like the budget saying, no, 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 but it's now saying like, yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do this. It was proactive, and it was allowing us to achieve things and reach goals. And it wasn't just slapping us on the wrist for bad behavior.
Hmm. Right. And so that's actually the foundation for your four rules, right? Walk us through the four rules that you guys still go by today.
So yeah, these haven't really changed ever. You could give every dollar a job. A little addendum to the first rule is you only do that with money you actually have. So no pretending that money will come in, even if you have this super stable job and your payday is in 3 days. just budget the money you have on hand. Number two is we call it embracing your true expenses. So you look ahead to your larger, less frequent expenses and you make sure you include those. You know, we're in August now. So Christmas is coming up in a few months, and that's a real expense for a lot of people, all the holiday spending, but we don't consider that until the month lands, and then you're like, oh my gosh, you know, what are we supposed to do? So
Right.
that's one example of what we call a true expense. They're larger, they're less frequent. You know, your car tires will wear down, your HVAC unit will need repairing, your roof in 20 years will need a little bit of work. All of those things are real expenses. And a lot of the time, not acknowledging those is what sends us into debt. It's what makes us say, oh, this is just an abnormal month, so I'll swipe here. Our third rule, and it's strange, Renita, that we have to make this a rule, but we basically say the rule is you can change your budget whenever you want. It's your budget, change it. So if something comes up and you need to move things around a little bit, do it. And then our fourth rule is a little unique. We call it aging your money. And we basically want 80% of this country, of the United States at least, is living paycheck to paycheck. And we want people to be able to break that cycle. When you age your money, it means that a dollar you earn today, you won't need for 30, 45, maybe even 60 days. You step away from that financial edge, your stress decreases, your sleep quality increases legitimately, and you're making better decisions because you're just not right on the edge financially.
I feel less stressed already
Oh,
when
good.
when
Yeah.
you talk about it like that. You know, so you mentioned holiday shopping. That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
And you have some guidance around creating your budget. Some people might think it's a little bit too early to talk about that, but I feel like it's the perfect time. So what's your guidance around creating a holiday budget?
So we all travel back in time to January of 2021, and that's when we start thinking about the holidays. Right after the last holiday season, you just sit down and your memory is fresh. And this is something I just learned recently. Julie and I, we have 7 kids, so it's a bit of work. Like it's some spreadsheet maneuvering with
Yeah.
us and figuring out how to do all of that. But I always enjoy like the retrospective that I have right after the holidays,
Okay.
where you kind of think, you know, this worked or this didn't, or I thought we needed to do something big and grand and we really don't. Or look, this little one here, he likes these simpler things. There are these things you learn and then you forget, and then the marketing starts around
Yeah.
October-ish, and then money starts flowing. So if you could next Christmas, after all the holidays are over, if you could write down just a few lessons learned, that's number one. So that's kind of a to-do in a few months. Number two is, with the lessons learned, you decide what amount of money are we comfortable spending on Christmas. And my word, the amounts range wildly among people and families. Some people go all out. It's their happiest time of year and they're just going crazy. Other people are much more conservative. No judgment. Whether you spend $50,000 or $500, it doesn't matter. You have a plan. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the amount that you decide, and you decide not based on slick marketing or based on what people think you should do. You decide based on what you want to do. You take that amount, you divide it by 12, and now you have a monthly holiday bill. And you'll just set aside money every single month into that little holiday fund. Then in July, if you're a weird person and you see a Christmas gift opportunity, you'd buy it right then. But if you're more normal, you kick, maybe after Thanksgiving, you start getting rolling with it. Either way, the money starts to build. And then when the holidays come, you have this big pile of money waiting to be spent. No guilt for spending it. And you get to have a little bit of joy in what's supposed to be a very joyous season. So that's the idea. We do it all. We're stressed out. We're overextended. It just rips the joy right out of there when we are just reactive to everything. So learn a few lessons from the next one. Keep those in mind. Set your own number. Divide that number by 12. Have a monthly holiday bill that you set aside for.
Very great ideas. I mean, it takes the urgency to make Christmas happen, to make the holidays happen. It takes that out of the equation so that, just as you say, you can enjoy it. And so I'm going to, look, I say this to everybody, but it's so true. You are getting so much love in the comments. Somebody goes, oh, YNAB changes lives. And I'm going to see if we have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Who has questions? Mostly comments, honestly, mostly
Okay,
comments.
excellent.
So you know what? While there are no questions, I have just one more. What are your quick do's and don'ts on budgeting in general?
Yeah. One is go in like full of forgiveness for yourself. So this is a process of learning and iterating, and you will never perfect it. I'm into golf right now because my second son, he's really into golf. I feel the same way about golf as I do about budgeting. You'll go out there with the best of intentions, and then it goes south very quickly. So
Okay.
you just know that you won't be perfect ever, ever, ever. And that's part of the process. And if you can accept that the process is iterative, it'll allow you just to kind of say, oh, I didn't guess right here on how much I'll spend. I'll move some money. And you recognize that budgeting is the ever deciding what your money should do. It's not a thing, it is a process. So we don't have a budget. We are budgeting. And we really need to make sure that we're just recognizing that there's just no perfection there. It's just we're always changing. That's number one. And if you can get that, that's like 90% of it is just not looking toward this idea of this perfect month, this perfect budget. That reminds me of another one though.
Okay.
Oftentimes people will say there is no, that like, oh, this month this exceptional thing happened, Renita, so that's why this went this way, or oh, that month that was this. When your life is full of exceptions, when every month has an exception, then we start to have to treat those as not exceptions.
Mm.
So there is no normal month in life. Every month will have something that will surprise you. And budgeting helps you decide what to do with all of the non-normal months in your life. And it's every single one of them. So you're always adapting. You're like a boxer that's just moving, looking at your opponent, waiting for a punch to be thrown, moving your head, trying to dodge. You're a chess grandmaster. You're always making the best move you can given the information, but then you're going to see how your opponent responds. And life is the opponent here. And my word, we've seen plenty of too much of that in the last 18 months. So we all need to recognize that we're always adapting, we're always adjusting, and that there's no normal where everything's perfect. Budgeting helps you grapple with all of the non-normal we experience.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Excellent.
Couldn't have said it better. Last question. Someone asked this. I had it in my mind, but I forgot. Now you said what to do when you're a year out of the holiday, right?
Yeah.
But some people are just starting right now. So so how can they plan for the holiday in November, December?
Yeah. So we've got September, October, November, December. We have 4 months. So you'd pick the amount you can do now, one thing on the amount, this also means you might travel more. Hopefully we'll be traveling more, right? This might mean that you'll be spending more on food. You might host a party or something. You might have people come over. You might buy some fancy, I don't know, a turkey or something. So you could go decorations. You could host a neighborhood party. It's not just gifts. Spending increases in all of these other ways around the holidays as well. So keep that in mind. You've got to pick a number. Be forgiving on your guess because you're not a fortune teller. So you pick a number. Someone will send you a text early December. Hey, do you want to jump in on this gift for so and so? It's $25 a piece, and you won't have thought of that. You'd be like, oh gosh, but roll with it a little bit. So pick a number, be forgiving on the amount, and then divide that by 4 because we're dealing with September, October, November, December. And I want you to be able to, at the beginning of each month, set aside a fourth of that number. Do not borrow for it. There are all kinds of ways that you can tell people, hey, for Christmas this year, I'm working more on spending time with people. I'm working more on experiences with people. There are ways to not necessarily come out of pocket for Christmas. And you'll find, I've found this with my wife, with my kids. We have this senior in high school, and we bought him tickets to a basketball game. So we weren't, it wasn't free, but the big deal for him was mom and dad are taking just you, and we're leaving the 6 behind to a basketball game. That was more unique than the basketball game, that he had this one-on-one time with us.
Right.
And his face showed it. He's opened it up. He sees the tickets. He's pretty excited. He's a Utah Jazz fan. But then it was like, oh, there are 3. Yeah, mom and I are going to take you. That was the gift.
Yeah. So
we can be thoughtful around that and not just tie it necessarily to a monetary amount as well. I mean, I'm no expert on the gift giving front specifically. Just make sure the money is there that you need. set aside a little bit each month, build that up, try and do it stress-free.
Absolutely. I love that you added and be thoughtful about those gifts. Certainly, limited funds would cause you to be more thoughtful
Yeah.
about it. And it's not necessarily always about getting the biggest gift for the holiday season, but it's about that. It's the thought that counts. As a person whose love language, one of them is gift giving, I can definitely agree with that. So, hey, we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for joining us on Your Money Story.
Thanks
And
for having me.
folks, if you want to learn more about Jesse Mecham, his wife, his family, and the You Need a Budget family, go on ahead over to the You Need a Budget Insta page, which has a link to all of the other properties like the podcast. And everyone, have a lovely day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Renita.
Bye-bye.